Divine disruption. Have you felt any of it lately? Do you feel like we're living in a time of intensity? Are you following the sun, following the rainbows? Have you tapped into your power and your ability to be in the rain and to presence the rainbow? It is incumbent upon each one of us on the spiritual path and the spiritual journey to stand in the midst of whatever is and birth rainbows and follow the sun. That's kind of a tall order, isn't it? There are other options that are quite ordinary, right? But we're not here to be ordinary, are we? We're here to be extraordinary. We're here to remember our spiritual gifts in each moment and realize and recognize that there's another way of living on the planet. There's another way of being. There's a whole other set of almost what Fillmore would call laws and rules that once we understand them, once we get into them, once we recognize they are there, we can live according to them. Now, we can choose not to. They can be there, be present, be available. Wisdom is everywhere accessible, always available. Love is everywhere accessible, always available, never in lack. But we can feel lack, can't we? We can feel like it's missing. We can almost suffocate it out of a room. Anyone been able to do that or seen anyone else that's done that or felt that? That is also in our wheelhouse. That is also in our ability. But when we take on the spiritual practice, we recognize that in each moment when we are awake, it is ours to stand in whatever is and birth the good. Be the good. A lot of people misunderstand the law of divine order, thinking, oh, it's just that everything that happens is good. Divine order is that I stand in it and I call forth the good. I become the good. I am a magnet for it. That means that when I wake up in consciousness, I drop a story that magnetizes everything for the negative. It means that when I'm in the rain, I feel it. I let myself have it. I let myself be there. I honor the human condition, but I also know who I am and that I am not the rain and that I have the ability to stand in anything and feel love, access wisdom, birth greatness. I was talking with a beloved here lately, and he was helping me out with something, and he said, we started talking about some of the divine disruption that's going on in the world and some of the things that are driving us a little nutty. And one of my things is that I have a refrigerator. I just had to get a new refrigerator. And it's not just that it's a new refrigerator and that refrigerators have gone up in cost and that it was a really inconvenient time to get a new refrigerator and that's not a fun way. You know, that was one of the things of getting older. It was like, I remember the first time I spent money on a mattress. I was like, ugh, this is like one of the worst ways to spend money. This is so not fun. Like, and it's a lot of money. And I learned that you don't get a really bad one. You know, I had to send the first one back because it was only like a little bit of money. And I was like, that wasn't a smart idea. But it was just this discord of like, what an awful way to spend your money as an adult. This is what adults do. They spend their money on mattresses. So I spend my money on a refrigerator. And the thing that drove me the craziest about it was I have a refrigerator from 2013 that was in my garage that pittered out during the last 2 years. And I had a refrigerator from 2015 that was in my house. That's not that long ago, right? So for as big of a pain as it was for me, it was more, my heart was breaking for the Mother Earth because we have the ability and we have the wisdom and we have the skill these days to make a refrigerator that you could literally just clip off the back side of everything that needs to work, clip it off, replace it, and stick it back on your wall. And if people really need something new and fancy, well, they could just Figure out how to change the panels so you can change the color. But there's no reason that I might have a 74 Beetle in my garage that works and a 2016 car is not working. Or a 2013 and 2015 refrigerator is not working, so in 2022 you got to get another one. My parents still have their stuff from when I was growing up, and I'm not that young. I, in fact, had a washer and a dryer, and I ended up exchanging them because they were having problems. They were messing my floor and all this. I exchanged them, gifted them to someone who knows how to fix things and work on things, and I exchanged quite nice. A quite nice set of a washer and dryer that were a housewarming gift to me to purchase my friends who at the time had a 14-year-old washer and dryer, and I purchased that for $100 because it all these kind of things, if you know me, stress me out. Unless Vern comes over to check on them and see if they can be fixed, or Crazy Carl, if you don't know him, that's what he wants to be called. I didn't just call him crazy. But unless someone comes to kind of like rescue me on a horse, I'm like, But I exchanged that for a $100 washer and dryer. That was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and they're still working. Planned obsolescence. And when you're not prepared for it, it can take you for a ride. And when your heart is an environmentalist heart and you look at the world and you think about that on a mass level, it's like, what are we doing? We are stomping all over the planet, and we are stomping on each other. We're wasting resources in a time when we could be dedicating those resources to other things, when we should be dedicating them to innovation, to growth, to harmony, to beautiful, magnificent things, not to refrigerators going in landfills. Amen? But sometimes when we're off balance, when there's not integrity in a system or in a being, things get wonky. And things have gotten wonky lately, right? So when I was talking with this beloved about what's going on in the world, he said to me, I haven't seen and felt this kind of unrest since living through the 60s. The assassination of Kennedy, Martin Luther King. The turmoil, the upheaval, not matching it, not that it's the same thing, but that the discomfort, that the movement, that what we're being present to, that it's big stuff. Do you feel that? Like big stuff. So how do we show up for it consciously? How do we recognize it? How do we become part of the solution rather than magnify and multiply the problems? One of the first things to recognize in times like this is that people often walk around with wounds we cannot see, with invisible wounds. I like to say sometimes on this planet, in this earth realm, we are growing all over each other. But it's so important to recognize at times like this that they take the highest level of consciousness, not just to stay centered yourself, but to be a lighthouse for others, to stand in the rainbows and to embrace the rain, but also be a part of birthing something that is beautiful. To support transmuting negative energy and the disruption, to be able to be present to the divine disruption without falling prey to it. Whether it's in our own individual lives or whether we feel like someone's growing all over us, sucking us into the story, spilling the toxic fumes into the system. If we can recognize at times like this that we have a spiritual role, that it's, yes, for our own benefit, but not just for our own, it's for the world. And if we can tread lightly, if we can embrace gentleness, if we can get clear in consciousness, clear about doing our work, clear about what is ours, because when people are in pain and suffering, and no doubt there's pain and suffering going on, right? When people are in pain and suffering, the natural tendency is to bump up against each other on the wounds, to get our pain bodies triggered. If you don't know what a pain body is, that's what Eckhart Tolle calls. He's one of the great authors of this era that we're living in, teaching present moment awareness. And he teaches that the pain body is that unhealed self. Anytime you're not in presence, anytime you're reacting, anytime you're building anything that you don't really want to build, if you were in meditation, you were like, I wouldn't be choosing this. Anytime you're in drama, anytime we're taking it personally, we're in the pain body. Anytime we're prospering pain, elevating it, magnifying it, rolling around in it, saying, you're doing it to me. I like to try in my practice to say, I'm using you to heal. Like, you got some things you're using from the outside realm to do your healing work? But one of the greatest gifts that we can give on this planet is to slow ourselves down enough to recognize when we're in the wake of someone else's chaos, when someone else is in a pain body, when we're in a pain body. Because otherwise it's like being stomped on, isn't it? When you're giving your love, when you're giving your gifts, and it's not seen or it's not recognized, or you're trying, or no one knows what you're going through, right? And that's the truth. Even when we share, even when we open our hearts and we try to explain and we get support and we have people around us, we get counselors, we get friends, whatever it is, we have an incredible system, or not, or we bring ourselves somewhere to get help. Even when we try to express it, still no one knows. No one knows what you've lived through, what you've heard, what you're working with. No one knows what it feels like to be you in this moment in your life. And we can stand with each other and stand for each other, but only we get to be the one that experiences it to really know. So there's a Buddhist precept. There are 5 Buddhist precepts, and we're going to talk about the one, hurt no living thing. It's a philosophy to live by, hurt no living thing. This morning, I was sitting in my space corner being with the message, and I had my laundry pile up. The only thing that was left down there were the sheets that hadn't gotten folded. So this little laundry pile up, and there was a little jumping spider on the sheets. And I thought about leaving it right there, and then I thought about folding the sheets later and thinking, that little spider is going to bite me, or it's going to be in my bed. It's going to be somewhere, right? And so I just flicked it off the sheets and thought, that'll be okay for now, because I didn't have the time, I didn't have the presence of mind to take my little friend outside, which is what I normally do. In fact, I have people that have heard my sermons that say, one of the things that stayed with me is I now take spiders outside. Like, I don't just stomp on the bugs. And you know what happened? I flicked him off the sheet, and then he started hopping around, and he started hopping towards the little chair that I was on, and I was like, you're going to be here later. And I stomped on a Sunday morning. And he oozed on the floor. And he was this little tiny thing. You know, some people keep them in jars, and it's like a thing. It's like a pet, jumping spiders. And he probably, I don't know anything. I didn't research his pain bodies. I don't know if he's going to bite me. I didn't find out even if he's a biting spider. But I was like, I don't have the time. I don't have the presence of mind. I was unconscious. It was like this split second of like, I don't want you to affect me later. I don't want to get caught up in your stuff. Stomp, react. And then I did the blessings. I'm so sorry. And this is real. I mean, this is no joke. I did just like clearing. I apologize. This is life. And I sat down and I looked at him like, like if you watch a spider for a while, that's like any insect. You watch them for a while and like you see into godness. So I did a little forgiveness work for myself, and I cleaned him up. I blessed him, and I put him in the trash can. Because we're here on this planet and we grow all over each other, don't we? But I share that story because in life, we stomp when we're not awake. We stomp on each other, we stomp on ourselves, and we stomp on the world around us. If that Buddhist precept was rewritten in unity language, it would probably be something like, lift up life, stand for life, don't prosper your pain body, don't participate with someone else's pain body, stay awake to life. And it would probably also have some tools along with it about beholding the Christ. In unity, we say those words, behold the Christ, or behold the anointed one, behold the awakened one, behold the soul force, call it whatever you want, but it is the divine self, the self that's in you, the self that goes beyond time and space, beyond lifetimes, the self that is not encompassed into this body, it's not within this body, is the animating faculty of this body, is the part of you, of me, of all of us that is in tune and connected with the high and the holy. It is what we are. And when we behold the Christ in yoga, we say, namaste, namaste, which just means the light in me sees and greets the light in you. But if we are awake and alive on the planet at this time and at this stage, and if you are in a body working with the energies that are, and if you are in a community or a relationship who is not, even if you're not, that's a relationship with your world, then we have an opportunity. And the opportunity goes beyond not hurting any living thing. It's a call to bow to the light in the midst of everything. So what are the practical tools? How do we do that? In some spiritual spaces, they'd say, prepare yourself for battle, because it feels like a battlefield sometimes, right? But it's really about building up a spiritual armor of knowing who you are. It's really about being able to metabolize or transmute energy or not take it on in the first place, right? Of just skipping ourselves, skipping those stages of healing and trauma, and just recognizing when we have a wound or when we're with someone that has a wound, and waking up. I will honor you enough to behold the light and to not participate with your woundedness. Not to be afraid by it, not to stomp on the spider, right? Because I'm going, where is it going to show up? How's it going to hurt me? That's what we do. We either get into it, right? Or we want to stop it real fast. And in the spiritual practice, the ego wants to practice all this stuff in theory. Like, in theory, like, I'd like to do the work. But in practice, in praxis, let me run. When it's really up, let me run. But life isn't about theory. It's a moment-to-moment practice, is it not? It's a moment-to-moment practice. So can we give life? Can we support life? Can we stop stomping on life, our fire, our vitality that ends up draining us of our feelings of gratitude, of our joy, of our health, of our wholeness? Can we refrain from passing on our pain body or projecting our own trauma, drama onto everyone else? And can we be the space? Can we grow a temple within us that acts like spiritual armor, that is a safe space for others and for the world to be growing? Because what we know is if we avoid this work, if we keep it theoretical, we're not growing. We're just reading or attending workshops, right? Someone said to me just recently, they said, we want to, even when we're in grief, we want to read a book about grief rather than actually sit with the grief, right? We want to intellectualize it. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but if we're using it as a technique to avoid it. And so if we want the world to do its growth work, if we want ourselves to do our growth work, then we've got to step back and be the space for it to happen. We've got to be the one that goes, I can see they're in an incredibly difficult situation. They've never been in this situation before. It's an incredible time of change or discord or disruption or whatever it is. I can see that that might feel like it's coming at me or might be messing all over me, whatever, trying to ooze my little spider juice out all over the place. It's not about me. I can be the space for that because I want this work to happen. Right? I want this work to happen. So the world is going to get oozy. Ooh, that's the name of a gun, isn't it? Yes. That came in. But it's here, isn't it? So what do we do when it's here? Because if we just sew it up, that's an unhealed wound. Sealed wound. And if we just seal it without healing it, it will rupture. So we're here to build up our fortitude. We're here to build up our strength. We're here to be the light. We're here to stand in the presence. And we do that by waking up faster and faster. We do that by stepping aside when we see a whirlwind, a tornado, or the chaos. We do that by going, okay, there's a space for this. You probably saw this on the news, but there was a beloved that lost his life. He had just lost his sister a little earlier, and he was in pain and suffering, and he's young. I forget if he was 11 or 13, African-American young man. And his family said he may have gotten involved in the wrong crowd, and yes, he was in pain and suffering, and he had an altercation with the police, and he was shot and killed. And I said to my friend as I was presencing that story, I said, there's no playgrounds for the kids anymore. Like there's not enough space for a kid to be a kid and to be able to go through what they need to go through when they're in pain. And usually, it used to be, I felt like you could step aside, you could act out a little bit, you could go through what you need to go through. We're here to create the space to see a pain body and to get it, to understand it, and not try to go to war with it. Because when we go to war with it, it's unreasonable, it will not reason, it will not settle, it will not heal. What will heal it is presence. What will heal it is mindfulness. What will heal it is spaciousness. Drama and the pain body, and you can fill in the blank of whatever it is in your life and in your current experience, can only thrive when we are unconscious. That disruption, that feeling, that prospering the problem can only thrive when we are unconscious. So if we are in it, we are unconscious. The good news is, in each moment, the present moment, we can wake up and be conscious, literally, instantly. We can have experiences that invite us into dropping it, and we can drop it. We can think there's a maze and there's an insurmountable thing, and we can look straight through it and pave a path. That is available to each one of us in every instance. The ego will say the perfect life is always around the corner. The peace is always around the corner. The solution, the healing, whatever it is always around the corner. But hey, life is made of corners, and there have been a lot of corners. Corners, corners, corners. It's now. It can happen now in a moment of awareness. And that's our call. That's beholding the awakened one and the collective awakening. So let's master how to be in someone's storm. Let's master how to be in the presence of the holy, how to be and bring the presence of the holy in the midst of a collective storm. Let's master how to be there for ourselves when we feel like we are the storm. Breathe in the wake of the chaos, moment by moment. Build your spiritual armor, put up your no vacancy sign. There's no room for this at the end. I can presence it, I can witness it, but it doesn't have anywhere to land here. Be gentle, be conscious, be a neutralizer. Walk gently in the lives of others. Not all wounds are visible. Namaste.